Everybody just exhale. Just after what we witnessed out on the Palace on the Prairie, just everybody exhale. No, doesn't mean the college football playoff odds are over for Oklahoma. Doesn't mean that Ole Miss has just joined its team and put itself in a position to where it is going to be a college football playoff threat. Everybody just take a deep breath. But bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, what a game. What an absolute game. Final score, 34-26. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, get a signature top 10 win. And they're in the driver's seat to go to the college football playoff. All right, let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here, post-game reaction show. Like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk Ole Miss football. We talk Oklahoma football. We're going to talk about college football playoff odds. We're going to talk about coaching searches, all of that. So make sure that you are locked on in. Don't miss out on any of the action. Download the podcast version of the show, wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials. Link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. As always, we're proudly brought to you by our friends over at FANDUEL. Sign up today at FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Could be on Ole Miss's chance of going to the playoff. Could be on does Brent Venables get shown the door. Whatever it is, bet on over FANDUEL.com/SECU. Wow, what a game. I mean, momentum switches in more specifically just crazy back and forth moments of where it felt like Ole Miss was going for the knife and the dagger. Then there were moments where it felt like this is where Oklahoma strikes. Just little details like that go such a long way. As always, we start with winners first on the show. You got to give a lot of credit to Lane Kiffin and the boys. I mean, with how much noise had been going on entering this week, Florida job, what is going to be the status long-term? Do you get a new contract extension? Playing on the road against a team that is looking to respond and get back to its winning ways consistently after Red River, coming off a good performance running the football, your inability to stop the run, people questioning your defense. For all of the outside noise to come on in and set the tone in the first half, I think truly was a testament to how different this Ole Miss roster is compared to the last few years. Because in years past, again, the moment would get too big. We would feel it just be like, this is where it all comes crashing down. This is where somehow, some way, Lane Kiffin is going to find a way to mess it on up. And they didn't. Oh, man, great execution. By the way, we got to talk about Trinidad Chandler and Kiffin Lacey. Here's the thing that just is so impressive to me. Nobody mentions these guys throughout the entire offseason. I didn't. I know that nobody else mentioned Trinidad Chambliss. Something about Lane Kiffin and his knowledge and knack of finding dudes that just hit their stride at the right moment in the transfer portal is beyond special, because if that really was the game early on. Trinidad Chambliss once again being able to connect downfield. Winston Watkins having a big time day. But Kiffin Lacey being able to get 2 early touchdowns. Efficiency of being able to evade defenders at the line of scrimmage, create second chance opportunities, and push forward for first downs really was such a defining trait that really got the ball moving for Ole Miss. They were excellent on third down conversions. They were able to build a good rapport in the passing attack, whether it was to Daquan Wright or Harrison Wallace or Caden Lee making plays out of the slot. For them to be able to move down the field efficiently after that opening drive, get the field goal, they give up a field goal. It's 3. Then to respond the way that they did, 8 plays, knowing that they didn't have to use the clock, but they did in their favor. Big pass to set up the 28-yard touchdown run by Kiffin Lacey. Phenomenal expectations. That, my friends, is what you want to see. That is vintage Lane Kiffin in his bag, making sure that the offense is able to hum. So they were able to really go ahead and set the tone. Defensively, it felt like the moment they got the safety on Xavier Robinson, that was where momentum completely went out the window in favor of Oklahoma in the first half, and they were just holding on for dear life at that standpoint. If they would not have had that safety, and let's just say they get a first down, it truly does feel like Oklahoma was about ready to explode. They just kept having that big-time play to Isaiah Satanga. They were able to go ahead and get a punt. This felt like where we were going to see them be able to strike. And good job being able to slow it down. Ole Miss's run defense was phenomenal today. And I know people are going to say, well, what? They give 136 yards. You got to remind yourself that 65 of those yards came on one play to Xavier Robinson. And again, great run. Besides that, you take that play out, they only gave up 71 rushing yards. You want to know what that brings you to? 2.1 yards a carry. Ole Miss's run defense was its weak point for weeks. It was a weak point last week against Georgia. The ability to see how well they were able to move the football, especially on second chance opportunities, from the standpoint of Nate Frazier to Chauncey Bowens to even Gunnar Stockton. There was no running support outside of a few explosive plays. Don't get me wrong, when Oklahoma got inside the red zone, Xavier Robinson punched it on in once again. But the fact was, you take away that run, it was very much we're going to force John Mateer to be us through the air. And he had a good day. And you can't sit here and say that John Mateer didn't have a good overall passing day when you look at the numbers. Certainly, you could say that they had a lot of meat on the bone going 17-31, but they were forced into throw it downfield. That ultimately became such a deciding factor. And it felt like, again, there were moments in this game where certainly you thought Ole Miss was going to blow it. I can tell you what, I thought for sure they were going to blow it going into the second half. They go for it on fourth down inside their own territory. Made no sense to me whatsoever. Why are you not getting the punt off? Especially when you know that your center has had 2 bad snaps already early in the game. It's an overshot punt. Keelan Lacey can't get anything moving. They set themselves up, and defensively, once again, you got to stop and you hold them to a field goal. You'll take that. But it just felt like throughout the moments, this is where Ole Miss kind of lets us down. This is where Oklahoma responds, and they take it away. And they got the lead. They were able to respond. They were able to build some. They put themselves in a good position. And they didn't give it up. And that is where this Ole Miss team is different. It's where it makes them special. It's where you got to remind yourself of, hey, these are some years where we're going to be able to kind of hold on hope and think that we can kind of turn the tides. I know Oklahoma fans are going to want to talk about the officiating. I will get to that in a minute. So if you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification, and make sure that you go ahead and hit subscribe, because we will absolutely be talking about officiating. It's not going to be the only thing that we talk about, but for Ole Miss, there were so many moments where you need people to step on up. I did not think Traynad Chambliss had a great game. I thought he had a solid game, not a great one. He missed wide open receivers. The touchdown pass that should have been to Luke Haas on third down, my goodness, there was not a better schemed up play by Charlie Wise and Lane Kiffin on the day. And if you just have a little bit more touch on the football, the game is over right before the end of the third quarter. I mean, like, that's how close you were to seeing this thing break on open. So it wasn't a good day, but you know what was? The response mechanism of the offensive line to create opportunities for the rushing attack to be there. The response mechanism of wide receivers to find ways to get on open at times. There were so many different factors to where you didn't put it all on Chambliss's shoulders to have to be the answer. And yet still, he did enough to get the job done. Nobody's going to sit here and complain when you have yet another 300-yard performance, especially against this defense. 314 yards through the air, another 53 on the ground, to be able to create 6 first downs with your legs, including a big 16-yard scamper. Even if I think that it was not up to your expectations, the numbers don't lie. And again, this is not a run-of-the-mill defense like we saw last week with Georgia, to where your defense allowed them to come back in this game. This was Oklahoma. Oklahoma had the number 1 total defense going into this game. On top of that, they were excellent on third down efficiency. They were great in pass rush. They had the number 1 pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus. And credit where credit's due. The sleeping giant that has been the status of Ole Miss this season is their ability to protect the quarterback. It was phenomenal. The inability to put pressure on him all day. I mean, quite literally. How many sacks were there? 1, if I'm not mistaken, all day on Traynad Chambliss. So you got to give credit where credit's due to that standpoint, and everyone else decided to step on up. I will say the thing that was very infuriating was some of the play designs by Lane Kiffin, because they could have easily busted open the floodgates before halftime. I don't understand why you decide in the second quarter to go away from your quarterback that pushed into the end zone. So think about this for a second. You get the big safety, and then you go for the field goal. And what happens after you watch Traynad Chambliss connect with Harrison Wallace to put you inside the 20? You get back down inside the 10. You go to Austin Simmons, back-to-back plays. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me that you took out your fastball pitcher to go to your slurve, to go to your curve, to go to your off-speed pitch, which is number 13. And that's not an insult on Austin Simmons. I still think that he could be a good quarterback at times, but there were so many moments to where the self-inflicting wounds or the creativity that wasn't necessary kind of allowed Oklahoma to stay in this game a little bit too close for comfort. But ultimately, you get a win. And ultimately, it's a signature win. It's a win that you're going to use as an advantage to say when it comes time to the college football playoff, we checked off the boxes playing on the road. We were able to respond. Everything that you want to see was there. And so from that standpoint, you got to put yourself in a position to where things are trending upward. My bad. Not a top 10 win on the road. My apologies. Ranked win against an SEC team on the road. So my apologies. That was not what I meant. So my bad on that one. Let's talk about Oklahoma, though. Oklahoma being able to get that critical stop on fourth down in the third quarter gave them life. Because if somehow, some way, we watch this Ole Miss is able to respond and put itself in that position where they go and they get the first down, it felt like this is where maybe things are going to go south. Because remember, Oklahoma, coming out of the break, they punt it 3 plays. You get turnover on downs, you get a short field position, you get the field goal, you make this back to being at least a 9-point game. You hold them to a field goal on the ensuing drive, and then all it takes is one play, Xavier Robinson off of the house. So momentum at that standpoint was so critical, especially after the safety. That's where you can hold out hope. Your defense was able to deliver in the third quarter. They made this thing a tight race. They kept them out of the end zone. They only allowed field goals. You forced the punt, and then your offense was able to respond. That third down execution, quick design, that was why you hired Ben Arbuckle. The Xavier Robinson run for the 22-yard play, the John Mateer run for the 16-yard play, and then to get Xavier Robinson inside the end zone, go for the 2-point conversion, that was why you brought in Ben Arbuckle. If you want to understand what was so critical about that moment, it was that play right there. So that, my friends, is why momentum is so critical. But you had too many self-inflicted wounds, and this is why I didn't want to talk about officiating. Because of the Isaiah Satanga punt should have never happened. If you fair catch it, you don't give Ole Miss the ball inside of its territory, and they don't get a field goal. And you make this still a one-score game. And ultimately, maybe that's where momentum swings back in favor of Oklahoma. They end up taking the lead, and then we watch as once again, Ole Miss is going to have to be able to result downfield and put themselves in a position to score. And we saw last week where it was back and forth, opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for Ole Miss to be able to get back in this game against Georgia. Georgia responded, Ole Miss didn't, and it resulted in a victory out in Athens. So the punt was a big-time deal for you. The play calling at times is a big-time deal for you. John Mateer, unfortunately, did not have an elite day up to the standard of Oklahoma fans. But the other thing that was so detrimental here is that John Mateer made things a little bit more challenging. You have a wide receiver in Isaiah Satanga who all day was making plays in space. Now, I know the punt return was certainly an issue, but you got to remind yourself that there was a play where if all you do is get the first down on fourth down and not go deep to Giovanni Gibson, Five's going to make space. Five's going to get the first. You're going to keep momentum on your side. And at that point, yeah, you may have to burn through some timeouts, but at the same token, you're going to be able to force Ole Miss to play with some timeouts, and they're going to have to burn some clock. And you went a little bit too risky. There were 2 throws on that final drive. All you have to do is get the first down, and John Mateer wanted the double. Just get the single, get on base, take the walk. Walk sometimes will eventually lead to the game-winning run coming on home. And this is the problem that sometimes we see with quarterbacks. It's part of the reason why John Mateer got you to the standpoint sitting at 6-1. It's also part of the reason why sometimes you hate seeing those type of plays. There was multiple moments where easily, if you just push forward, you're able to get the first down. And unfortunately, John Mateer wanted the home run ball. And that eventually came back to cost you. It's not a loss in the end, all be all for Oklahoma. Your defense didn't have an elite day whatsoever. They were able to go gas you up and down the field at times. You allowed far too many explosive plays, in my opinion. But it's Ole Miss. It's Lane Kiffin. If you don't go for the jugular early on, you are not going to be able to slow him down. Your run defense played really well. You only gave up 2.8 yards of carry. You allowed 2 red zone touchdowns, one of which was inside the red zone, one of which was very close to the goal line. So can't really complain about that. The question is, how do you respond at this standpoint if you are Oklahoma? Because now the pressure's on. You have entered the conversation of it's a win out territory. So you have 4 games against ranked teams to be able to get back on the wagon. Tennessee, Alabama, Mizzou, LSU. All those teams still might be ranked when you face off against them. You might have an opportunity to go ahead and boost up your resume. But what you took away from today's game, this is now where you have to be able to put yourself in a position where not only can you strike, but more specifically, you have to play more perfect football. And you hate having to say that, but that's kind of the bottom line. Again, Oklahoma, I thought was going to be a 9-3 team. 9-3 is still very possible. 10-2 is still very possible. But you can't have the self-inflicting wounds, and you can't have the big-time plays that you know are necessary when, honestly, a single can get the job done. Now on to officiating. I will be the very first to say that Oklahoma got shafted on place. The roughing the passer call was absolutely egregious. And if you are an Ole Miss fan, I know that you're going to take it, but let's just be real. That was not a late hit on Trey Chambliss. That was not a roughing the passer call. It was asinine. And then you want to talk, I can understand your frustration. I can. But at the same time, I am not going to blame the Zebras on every single opportunity. I'm not. You had moments where you were able to go ahead and build momentum, moments where you were able to score. There were multiple holding calls that were not called against Ole Miss. There were multiple holding calls that were not called against Oklahoma. So both sides were very well missed. And honestly, with those holding calls, the thing is that it's not like it was a lopsided. Oh, it was a hold against Ole Miss, so therefore they're going to get 15 yards taken off of them. But you're not going to see it from Oklahoma's side. They let you play football. You had your moments. You didn't get enough critical stops on third down. You didn't win the time of possession. You did over until the punt return, but ultimately you lost in the turnover battle. They had more first downs than you. They were more efficient on third down execution than you. Not by much, but they did. And they outgained you. Little things like that go a long way. Penalties were a time deal. You outrushed them, but not as much as you want to think, because if you take away that rushing 65-yard run, it doesn't happen that way. You were worse on fourth down execution than them. So all little details that put you in that position that really could have been in that position. So that's where it is. There were missed calls on both sides here. The roughing the passer call, I will 100% tell you at this point, you deserve to have. But there were ones that you probably could have had against Ole Miss that they didn't call. So again, we can sit here and put blame on the officiating as much as you want to, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It wasn't it. You had opportunities. You could have ran the football. You chose not to. You had the opportunities to go ahead and put the ball in the hands, but you know what? Choose not to. I'm sorry. That's what it is. There were so many opportunities for either side to be able to gain that momentum, and there wasn't. So, hate to be it, but unfortunately, that's the way you are. We get to questions, comments, concerns. Get on out of here. Ole Miss, again, not a top 10 win road victory, top 25 road victory in the SEC. My apologies for not saying that properly. We'll get in and out of your comments. Howdy toddy. Not confident in today's game. Sammy and I wouldn't be confident either. It isn't. Caden Lee is the real deal. I'm shocked that he has not been more involved in the passing attack later, but you know what? That's something that you have to go ahead and hold on to. That was beautiful for Ole Miss. Again, you put yourself in a position to where now you get to kind of control the situation. Material lost that game. Terrible pedestrian running. Alan, here's what I will say. Material lost that game because there were multiple shots that he could have taken that would have gotten the first down, and instead he went for the home run ball. And that's not a way to win. That's where to hurt yourself and put you in a position to where you're not going to be able to respond, get out of trouble, and ultimately put you in a position to where you now are putting more pressure on your defense to have to deliver. And your defense did a good enough job today, but it didn't do a lot. Prince Roll was on a mission. Mr. Cole Thompson picked the win. I did pick the win. I'm very excited about that. So this will not be considered a good win at the end of the year, and BV will be unemployed. I don't know. If you go 9-3, Brett Venables is not getting fired. He just isn't. Ben Arbuckle's not leaving anytime soon, and I expect John Mature back next season too. OU had the momentum in the third quarter and gave it away. They did. They absolutely did. Tried to tell you, buddy. Howdy Toddy defense was clutch when they needed to be. However, Lucky Material wasn't accurate on a few throws. There were multiple moments, and there was also a 15-yard penalty tacked on by Fletcher in coverage on a pass interference call. Again, officiating gave you 15 yards. That would have been on third down. It would have been at midfield. You would have not even put yourself in a position to where you could have potentially scored. So, like, little things like that go a long way. Bad passes at times really put you there. Boom, mofos. Okay. Every touchdown was lucky for OU. They weren't lucky. I mean, there was just bad pursuit angles. The Xavier Robinson touchdown was just a bad pursuit angle from the get-go. Nobody was in the right place. They weren't able to put themselves in a position. Not going to say great game calling, 2 serious dumbass moves by Connecticut. Yeah, I mean, they almost did. Again, that's kind of where we are. Huge holding call. Bama's efficiency. Boom. Benny, yeah, no, I'm not going to answer that. You're stupid for even coming up with that guy. There was the other guy. That was penalty. Revving the passer calls are becoming more and more. Oh, we're not going to go that far. Do you think we're going to lose Florida to Kiffin? I don't know. I genuinely don't. I can tell you what. I think that right now Lane's not thinking about I think Lane's too busy worried about what's going to happen with my team for the rest of the year, because that was a way to be able to show that right now your focus is in on Ole Miss. He's put the program in a position to where it's better suited than where it was when he first got there. They're going to be a 10-win team potentially once again. They should, at least, if you throw in the bowl game. That would now be 4 years of 10-plus win seasons. You're going to potentially be in the playoff. You're potentially going to host a game at Vaught Hemingway. So, again, that's probably a pretty good spot. Hats off to Ole Miss's D-line. Ole Miss's secondary was sus. Yeah, there were really bad throws sometimes with John Mateer that you probably could have picked off. There were really bad plays to where you allowed explosives downfield to Isaiah Tenga, Deion Burks, Jared Kanek. A lot of moments like that. Kiffin going nowhere, and Knox let slip last night, according to some Florida media. I doubt it. I hope Mateer comes back. Doesn't come back. Hawkins. I'm going to tell you right now, there was a reason Hawkins didn't play in that game. Like, if you look back at Red River, there was a reason why Hawkins didn't play. If you do not want to have John Mateer as your quarterback, that's totally fine. I completely understand. But it's not because if you want to turn to Michael Hawkins. That is not going to be a winning formula for you. Wazoo over OU. Did McElwain have money on that game? Yeah, there were some calls I actually remember going back and saying to myself, McElwain feels really much in favor of Oklahoma. Like, I didn't think that it was fair to say that entirely, but it certainly was. Like, there were some moments where it is. Anyone out here trying to say Lane is an elite coach is simply dumb. Is not an elite coach. I was going to say, Ronald, no, he is certainly a top 10 coach. I hope Mateer comes back. No, he's not. Lane Kiffin saying, I'm saying after the OK game. Well, I mean, he's not going anywhere today. You got a game coming on up against Florida and South Carolina, and you got the Egg Bowl to kind of close things on out. So, I mean, yeah, he didn't go anywhere today. I don't think he's going anywhere tomorrow. If you ask me right now, gun to head, do I think he takes the Florida job? I would probably say no. But that's also me believing he's got everything made at Ole Miss. Doesn't mean that he can't. Pressure does not bother Trinidad Chambliss, dude. It's not that pressure bothers him at all. What I think that bothers him is that he had some really bad throws at times. Like, there were some plays when you look back, he was very much inaccurate. Overshot balls. Certainly the big-time touchdown that should have counted for Luke Haas wasn't there. I mean, there were definitely moments to where it felt like Trinidad Chambliss can break on open the bank, and it just did not hit. QBR blitz was 99. For starters, QBR is what we're going to talk about. I do not believe in QBR stat. I believe in passer rating stat. QBR is a made-up stat that was created by Ron Jaworski at ESPN. So if you know anything about me, do not bring up QBR, bring up passer rating. That's what we talk about here. I do not believe in the QBR metrics, and I never will. And I've gotten in multiple arguments about it with people, but I'm going to say right now, Ronald, if you tell me QBR, I'm not going to go ahead and do that at all. If he wins out, there's no way Lane leaves. This year was a rebuild. Again, I do not think Lane is going to take the Florida job personally. I think that you have everything made right now in Oxford, including they're going to throw you a bag of money that's going to keep you around and very content and happy. But again, that doesn't mean that he is not the prime candidate. We can talk about two different things here, guys. The first is Lane is the only name that's being mentioned for Florida at this standpoint. He is. It doesn't mean he's going to be the only name that interviews for the job and takes the job. Those are two separate entities that we have got to talk about. So that's where we're going with this standpoint. If Lane wants the job at Florida, it's his to lose. If he doesn't want the job at Florida because he's happy at Ole Miss, he's going to stick around at Ole Miss. And I can see both happening. Also, I do not think that Brent Venables will be fired this year. I think that he will be back for another season. You will see Ben Arbuckle back, and you will see John Mateer back. And those are going to be your three to build off of next year. That is going to face a lot of pressure and a lot of heat to have to deliver because now your schedule is going to be completely different, and there's going to be some more relaxed games ahead. There will be a few rebuilds. You will put yourself in a position to where you're going to have to respond. That's just it. All right. I'll get the questions in. A couple more minutes with you guys. Again, Ole Miss gets a signature 34-26 road victory over Oklahoma on the road, put themselves in a position to be able to respond. Now put themselves in a position to where they can go ahead and go to the college football playoff. As for Oklahoma, not over. Simply not over. What a way to respond to all the outside noise. Okay, we're going to end the live stream here. Like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel. And real quickly, if you haven't already, go on over to FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started today with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Could be on Trinidad Chambliss now going to the Heisman Trophy presentation. Could be on potentially Oklahoma making a run to the college football playoff. Both teams are still very much alive, and I do not think that either one of these games is either outcome of these games is going to determine are they going to be done. That to me is the bottom line. So prove me wrong. Go ahead and throw down some money. Win that bet. Get $250 with your first $5 deposit or more. FANDUEL.com/SECU. Oklahoma has to respond, has to win out, but they're not dead. And as for Ole Miss, You'll take a 34-26 victory 10 times out of 10, and you'll put yourself in a position to where you know things are trending in your direction. Game to remember, probably going to go down as a top 10 game in the SEC this year. Certainly much to discuss when it comes to both sides and how this affects their run into the month of November. I'm Cole Thompson. We'll be back after the Vanderbilt-Mizzou game. Y'all have a good rest of your Saturday afternoon. Peace.